Good evening, everybody. Football World Cup user Canada Mexico 2026. Senegal Congo Somalia Africa's humiliations on America's soil. Are we facing the most racist World Cup football of the history in United States, as it was entitled in many Western television? Let us follow these few images of the Senegalese player at their arrival at the US airport. As you can see, we have Senegalese players and USA authorities. In fact, the unacceptable show offered by the American authorities to Africa can be summarized into two acts. Act 1, even before the landing of the World Cup teams on the United States, we have seen a massive expulsion of the African teams' supporters, especially black African teams. This act, of, of course, will lead to the decrease of the number of African supporters in the football grounds. Act 2. At the arrival of the first African teams in United States, humiliating body search. We assist at the humiliating body searches, intimidations, pushback at the borders, pull out from the country, from America, unacceptable acts contrary to the ethics of sport competitions. We also notice that those unacceptable acts were condemned by politics as the New York mayors and by European journalists, as we can see on their TV screens. But the International Federation of Association Football, FIFA, didn't really condemn such acts. So it is clear that the world will assist at the most negrophobic FIFA World Cup of its history. In fact, since the announcement of this world and most popular event that will be displayed in Canada, Mexico, and USA, the world and particularly Africa is witnessing the most pathetic show offered by America and its president. That is ground zero racism practiced by the American government under President Trump leadership, and that is denounced by many Occidental television. So the body searching of the Senegalese player at the airport ground. Let us display it. This was the most pathetic show, as we can see on this screen, as they are just coming out of the plane. The Senegalese players are searched from the head to the leg, plus back, by a American border police like robbers. Yes, African citizens all around the world, this is an unacceptable humiliation. In international relations and international standards displayed by the International Air Transport Association, nowhere is written that the national team players of any country should be searched near the plane without any reason. Everybody knows that searching should be made inside the airport for security reasons, using a specific materials as radars, cameras, and other electronic tools. Searching can be made in the plane in case of suspicions, but no law states that the player of African national team should be searched with wide broadcast near the plane. A part of the 2019, a part of the 2019 to 2022 COVID-19 episode where the health crisis obliged to put aside all the protocol in terms of controlling the incoming passengers. Most often, in normal time, the searching is wisely made, respectful of the travelers. In that case, cameras and X, X-ray machines are used to check the body and the luggages of the passengers. But regarding the images showing how the Senegalese players were searched at the airport ground, any African could only manifest frustration and indignation. But once we have said that, we can only condemn the silence of the African leaders on the African continent. We cannot ask more to Senegalese whose president, ministers, players, and people unanimously shown their bravery and the defense of the African interest when the Senegalese team was facing inequity and unfairness in Morocco during the Africa Cup of Nations 2025-2026. It is the role of other African countries, leaders, and institutions to denounce by their own method the inequities suffered by the brothers of Senegal, Congo, Somalia, and all other Africa's countries who will be affected the next following days in the United States World Cup. Act 2. The setback of the DR Congo teams in the FIFA football adventure in US. Before the beginning of the World Cup, the Congolese and their team were subject to many strict restrictions imposed by the American authorities. The contents were diplomatic and health related. We assisted at a massive visa refusal and the eternal delay of many friendship, training, match, and training ship. The United States authorities have suspended the visa delivery services for the Congolese supporters since 18th of May 2026. The official reason put out by the American authority is that there is Ebola epidemic in Congo. Even the Congolese detainees of permanent residents of United States who moved to Congo few months ago were submitted to such restrictions. The United States Embassy in Kinshasa received firm instructions firm instructions from the State Department regarding this subject. But since at the same time many African citizens present on the American soil were massively deported out from that country, it is no more possible to see the Congolese visa restriction only under the eye of the Ebola epidemic. Yes, the contradiction is brought by Canada government. The world saw in 2019, 2022 how Canada perfectly managed the COVID-19 epidemic, who was more virulent than Ebola. Yes, Canada government managed the crisis with humanism, kindness, and with consideration for everyone without any racial or wealth criteria. In fact, from 2019 to 2022, as COVID-19 was in its higher level, African, Asian, or European who wanted to travel to Canada, they were asked to fulfill the usual sanitary requirements since their native country, and then they receive the visas. Then, when the traveler reached the Canadian airport, regarding his health status detected at the airport, he was authorized to come into the country or to pass through a binding isolation period in an hotel. And those hotels were chosen near the airport by the Canadian authorities. In that hotel, you had to wait for 14 to 21 days before getting into Canadian towns. That was human. That was honest, sincere, and respectful of all race. Unfortunately, in the framework of the 2026 World Cup in United States, Mexico, and Canada, the American authorities are multiplying since many months a type of negrophobia policy which raise question tags and which bring any neutral observer to conclude at the racism. In addition to the massive visa refusal to Congolese, many match and subsequent activities programmed for the team are forbidden on the American soil. Taking all these humiliation into consideration, many Congolese supporters were obliged to request from FIFA the return of their money in exchange of the entering ticket they bought before. The second case of unacceptable situation for Africa is the one of the Somalian referee, Kadim, Mr. Omar Abdul Akhtan. Yes, as we said, Mr. Omar Abdul was selected by FIFA to officiate many 2026 World Cup encounters. That was a wonderful and historic event for a Somalian, since we know the sad history of this country from 1990s. Furthermore, he obtained a valid and regular visa for the United States before leaving Africa. But unfortunately, he was served a no entry notice when he reached the first United States airport. Mr. Omar, in a desperate act, turned himself towards the FIFA official and plead for some aid. Unfortunately, FIFA officials validated the borders reconduction of the referee, and Mr. Omar went back to Somalia, where he was welcomed like an hero by the Somalian president. But for those who forgot the history, or for the young people, let us remind that this act of dishonor from the American authorities uh, seems to be a revenge, a moral revenge against Somalia. Yes, let us remind that the United States Army faced a crushing defeat in Mogadishu in the 3rd and 4th of October 1993. A special unit of the United States Force went to Somalia to confront with a militia named Somalia National Alliance and other fighters from different armed groups. These groups opposed a memorable resistance against the America's army, who was obliged to turn back and leave Mogadishu dramatically. So the question is, the United States officials, while escorting back the Somalian referee to the border, did they want to take a revenge? Do they want? Did they want to take a revenge from this historic and memorable event? That's the question. Anyway, all these unfriendly acts against Africans are just the continuation of an anti-Negroes policy of President Trump. Furthermore, the preliminary act was the gathering along the American countries of many African citizens in a so-called anti-immigration policy. The aim was to cut down the number of African supporters in different stadiums during the World Cup tournament. Was that the aim? We don't know. The mass eviction of African from different American states under Trump administration have taken place in the framework of what can be called aggressive diplomacy. Yes, to turn this possible, many secret deals were signed between Trump administration and many African countries, which accepted to welcome on the ground the African expelled, whether those Africans are from the welcoming countries or not. In exchange, the leaders of the African countries who accepted such deals receive a miserable amount of money. So, the 3rd of June 2026, 355 West African, Nigerians, Ghanaians, and so on, were expelled from United States. The 20th of May 2026, 9 migrants from West Africa, Senegalese and Guineans, were deported into Sierra Leone. The 3rd of April 2026, 8 people were deported into Uganda. The 15th of February 2026 and mid-January 2026, secret deportation of dozens of migrants to Cameroon and Morocco. All these were a prelude to a border restriction and other unfriendship acts. Those are applying to the African citizens during the Football World Cup 2026, and that will be kicked off in few hours. In regard of Trump anti-African policy, the silence, the blackout of FIFA and African leaders is unacceptable. Trump and his government are in their role. It is their right to defend their country. But African leaders, I mean president and government, should also be on their role to defend the dignity of their citizens. Mr. Gianni Infantino and other FIFA officials should also be in their role to defend the interests of the players and teams officials. It is unacceptable that no African president or government raised a single official protest regarding what we are facing since Morocco 2026. African Union, ECOWAS leaders, all are quiet when it is about defending the real interests of the continent. It is a shame. We can just make a wish that American authorities cool down a little bit for a few weeks to let the world and football fans celebrate the unique planetary common moment of uh, to celebrate the unique planetary common moment of joy. Thank you.